Hey guys.
Hey. Oh, it feels like it's been forever. I don't know if this week has just been slow or what.
Yeah, this
It's
past
just
these
crazy.
these 2 weeks have been really busy at school, so like my brain has just there's been like two or three different things that I said I would do this week that I forgot about, and I'm like, you know what? My brain is
Yeah, I get
just
that.
I'm doing too much, but you know
Yeah.
how that goes.
I am I'm editing for two different editing clients right now with two very different stories. And then at the time that I only had one, I had extra free time, so I started writing two books of mine in the same series while I'm editing. So basically I'm editing my own book too, and I'm writing books three and four because I had enough time, but now I have a second editing client, so that's five projects. And
Hmm.
I'm just like, maybe a little too much. I haven't posted on social media. Like I post on threads and then I share it, but I haven't actually made any reels on social media all week long.
Yeah,
It's just I'm swamped.
yeah.
So, and I like, which goes back into all this that I was trying to read at least a chapter a day, but like the last couple of days, I'm lucky to read two pages. I don't know if you've seen on Goodreads that I'm like 165, 167, 169. That's
Yeah.
literally been me all week long. But I was actually reading before we went live and I got a whole chapter done tonight. So I was
There
like,
you go.
hey.
There we go.
But ironically, it's kind of like the perfect book to have during this busy time because if it was a book I was really like super, super obsessed with, like, Fourth Wing or any of that, it would make me sad and I would try to like stress myself out squeezing reading time in. But because it's a book that I'm kind of just okay with, it works perfectly for, you know, not having too much time to read. But I think I'm almost halfway, maybe, pretty close.
Yep, you look like you're getting
But
there.
yeah. So I think I need to catch up a lot with you because last night you had just finished Crescent City. Did you
Hmm.
start Jurassic Park or
Yeah, I
did
finished it.
you?
I finished it this afternoon. I did a lot with audiobook though. And I didn't do
Okay,
any annotating with it just because um, I this is one of the
that book
books
is
that
like a
I
casserole.
yeah, it's a book that
Yeah,
I've had for several years since like 2012. So I'm
yeah.
like I'm not annotating. I'm not sticky noting this one. I sticky noted a couple um, quotes that I would put in my reading journal when I get to filling it out, but like that's only what those were.
Yeah, I totally. That's too precious of a like I totally get that. So,
Yeah.
okay, so what did you think I guess we got a lot to talk about. So what did you think of Jurassic Park?
Okay, I give it a 4.5 out of 5 just purely because I
Hmm.
I don't know. It's not it like I don't want to jump straight into the next book if that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like
Yeah.
kind of just set okay with it for now, and I enjoyed it.
Hmm.
Um, but
How long ago was it published? Do you know?
wait, look here. Goodreads says that the original version was published in 1997, so it's as old as I am.
Yeah,
So,
that's funny.
but like,
Okay,
and
so it's old writing, but not like old, like not
yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
old.
not like
Okay,
Peter
cool.
Pan or Lord of the Rings or that kind of old, but
Yeah,
and
not
it
that kind
was
of old.
like for the time I did do like some research on that like for the, like how accurate like was the science and like the dinosaur type stuff, and they said for the most part for the time it was pretty up to date with like the dinosaur aspect of things, but today's our knowledge today of dinosaurs obviously kind of makes that kind of stuff obsolete because we
Yeah,
know more about them
as you
now and
unearth
things like
more.
that.
Yeah.
But like a couple of things, I'll just read a couple. I'll just kind of pick a few snippets from my. Um,
Okay.
I'll say why is it not showing? I literally. Oh, this is the wrong one. This is not the one I reviewed.
That's
That's why I was literally like,
so
where is my
basically
review
you
of
read
it?
that within a week. Because the last time did
I started it
I
on the.
feel like it's been so long, but we did a check-in last week, didn't we?
Yeah,
Surely we didn't skip
I
one.
I
So
started
you
it
just read it
on.
really fast.
I started it on the 4th.
Oh, okay.
But it really like the regular like the book itself. Like the book itself, it was only like 400 pages, and I've been used to reading like 700 to 800, so it was like
Yeah.
relatively shorter compared to some of the others. Um,
Yeah. Meanwhile, me struggling to get through
um, but like, and
450
it
pages.
was like purely science fiction. Like, it Goodreads labels it as fantasy purely because of the whole bringing dinosaur things back, but it's like, it's definitely science fiction.
Yeah, that's what I would expect from it.
And so a couple of things like in the book, like the two kids, hold on. When mom and grandma say goodnight, you must respond with goodnight.
Yep, always.
But like the two kids in the movie, the girl's older. In the book, the boy's older.
That's cool.
And I
like
honestly prefer the movie girl over the book girl.
Oh, the book girl is more like what, annoying or?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the only thing I've learned about this girl from this book, she likes baseball and she's hungry and she wants food.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you think about it, they are both young kids, and I feel like the movie portrayed them as being older than how I kind of pictured them in my head as I was reading them. And so it's like the movie kind of aged them up and flip-flopped the ages a little bit. But it's like, if you put young elementary age kids in that kind of situation, experiencing what they experienced and witnessing firsthand, like a T-Rex attacking their Jeep and like knocking them out of the vehicle. I mean, like, let's be honest. Like, they're young enough that they're not going to fully understand the magnitude of what's going on. And they're going to be traumatized. And they're going to be freaked out. And so it's like, you know what I'm saying? So it just kind of makes sense on that part.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Like, let's see. The book definitely felt a lot, like, darker and more graphic in situations. Like, it wasn't so much scarier, but it was more of like, it definitely said that like when it switched to different POVs, like it definitely described them as like certain characters when they would get attacked as like holding their intestines, and I'm like, okay. Like that was not shown in the movie. Oh yeah, it's like graphic.
I love that.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so it was like in the movie was very much like hope for tomorrow, dinosaurs live on, like, you know, new life. It was kind of that kind of theme in the movie, but it's like in the book it doesn't really describe it that way. And there's more death in the books. And I'm not going to tell you specific characters that die, but there are certain characters that die in the books that don't die in the movies.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. That'd be nice, kind of a nice surprise. And not nice, but you know what I mean.
The character that Jeff Goldblum plays?
Yeah.
Like, in the movie, I don't mean this in a bad way. In the movie, he's very self-absorbed. He's very sarcastic. And you get hints of that in the book. But he almost reminds me more of, like, a well-to-do Sheldon-type character that's confident in what he knows. He's smart. He knows that he's smart. He's confident in what he is, but he's more self-absorbed and more kind of, like, fashion-ish. And I don't know. It's very...
Yeah, he definitely didn't give me smart vibes in the movie. You know
No, and that's my thing. It's like he's definitely a philosophical mathematician in the book, and like he's always talking about philosophy and discussing his theory, and how things work out. And it's like as the book goes through, it's like you definitely see that he knows what he's talking about. And and it's like in the movie, I love Jeff Goldblum, I really do, but I feel like they directed him to be not as smart. Like, he was smart, don't get me wrong. Like, he was definitely, like, a speaker at, like, colleges or whatever.
They
watered
him down.
But they that's a good way of describing it. So it's because it's, like, I didn't get nearly... There's hints of that in the book, Like, there are times where I'm like, okay, he's definitely full of himself there. Like, he's named this whole, like, because his main thing was talking about was the chaos theory, but he labeled it the Malcolm chaos theory. And so it's like he named it after himself and was like, it
Oh,
just,
that's
you
funny.
know what I'm saying? So it's like there's definitely moments of
Yeah.
that. And like, I got that throughout the book, but then I'm like, the movie did not portray him that way. Like, literally, when I watched the movie, all I got from him, I didn't get the vibe that he was a professional, because that's what Dr. Grant, Ellie, like Malcolm, a lot of the ones that they pull in to go through the park, they're all experts in their area. And it's like, when I watched the movie for the first time, he didn't feel like an expert in his area. You know what I'm? Did you get the vibe
really
of that?
What his area was?
Yeah,
not really.
He's a
he
master.
always came off as like a not really a playboy.
Yeah,
but kind of. Time's version of like a playboy-ish.
Yeah, and
with like some philosophy stuff thrown in there that wasn't that deep. So I
and so it's like it's definitely you get a little bit of that in the book, but not nearly to the magnitude of what they put in the movie.
Right.
And also. It literally, the book did a really good, like, the pacing wise, like, you would have, like, attacks, and then the things would get settled, and they would make some progress in getting the park restored, and they would think, oh, we've got everything restored, everything's fine, and then something else would happen, and things would shut down again, and then they would have, like, more attacks, and then they would start making some kind of improvement, and you think, hey, this book's coming to a close, and then something else happens, and it's like, it does this thing where it's like, oh, we're great, everything's fine, attacks, oh, okay, we're getting better, I think we're gonna be fine now, and then more attacks, and it's just like, it's constant of, like, constantly kind of going up and down of, like, are they going to are they going to be able to keep this park open? Like, and that's kind of the question, like, you're going through, and as you go through and you see the different things that happen, it's beginning to be, you get to the point where you're like, I don't know if this is going to be possible.
Kind of sounds similar to Fourth Wing's pacing a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I love. So.
It's one of those things, like, I think Michael Crichton, I kind of never can say his name right. But I think he does a good job of, like, balancing the science and philosophy bits of it, and also just, like, the action and the general, like, conversation, and stuff. And it's definitely plot driven, though. I don't really feel like there's a huge amount of, like, character development per se.
Right. Yeah.
Because several characters just die. So it's like, I don't know how much character development there. I mean, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, it's Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of comes with the expectation of the book that people are going to die in this book. So it's like, that's kind of expected.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. I give it a 4.5. I can't do halves on Goodreads, so I just did 4, but it's definitely like 4.5, almost 5. I don't know. I just felt like I was expecting it to be scary, and for some reason I wasn't that scared. And so I bumped it down half a star, because I'm like, I was expecting to be, like, scared out of my wits, like thriller vibes. And it wasn't as thriller as what I was expecting, but it doesn't, like, that doesn't diminish how good it was, because it was a really cool book, and, like, there's definitely quotes that I'm like Malcolm was talking about different things, and he's like, essentially there was, like, this conversation that he was having with Ellie, and it was essentially talking about how scientists, he's like, scientists want it that way, they have to stick their instruments in, they have to leave their mark, they can't just watch, they can't just appreciate, they can't just fit into the natural order. They have to make something unnatural happen. That's the scientist's job. And now we have whole societies that try to be scientific. And it was essentially, and at one point he talks about how, and it's like, there's times where he talks about how, like when we went to the moon, we left trash. Like, it was like, what was it? Essentially talking about, like, particle accelerators scar the land, leaving radioactive byproduct. Astronauts leave trash on the moon, and there's always some proof that scientists were there making their discovery. Discovery is a word I don't want to say on live stream. Starts with an R, ends with an E. is always a blank of the natural world, always. And I'm like, that's such a deep quote. And I'm like,
really
it's like, and as much as I love science and I love discovery and I love learning about the past, it's like, learning about the past comes with a cost. And I'm like, it's kind of like, it was kind of thought-provoking at times. And I'm like, that's why, honestly, Malcolm's character really stuck out to me in the book. And I'm like, I really feel like they should have directed him and added more of those kind of, and I'll have to go back and watch the movie too to see if they really do add a lot of that stuff, like a lot of his quotes into
the
it.
last part of that quote in the movie. So they did the last part is intact because I remember the word you can't say. But I feel like it was more casually thrown out there without the context of the rest of the paragraph you said, and from what I remember.
Yeah, and I have to go back and watch it because, like I said, it's probably been 10 years since I've watched that movie fully, like sat down and watched it. Yeah. So it's like, I
frequently rewatch them because Jurassic Park and Jurassic World is like one of my favorite movies of all time. So it's like I frequently rewatch that one. I would say that one and Pirates of the Caribbean are like my favorite franchises other than Star Wars. But so it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on the movie and compare the two. As for me, I've made very little progress, but I do have a lot more thoughts. So I do feel like it is better than Throne of Glass. So that is good. It's a step up, which was a 3-star read for me. Throne of Glass was, so at least it's a step up from there. Yeah. You have to let me relish in the "Oh, you sweet summer child" aspects because I know that her and Kale don't end up together, but I'm enjoying their romance in this book, and you have to let me just enjoy it because I really like the way that it's written. I like how, first of all, they have this deep connection because back then, I mean, this was like, 2014? It was like not about the spice or the lust or the attraction, and they actually like have time together. Yeah. And they have a lot more scenes together than I was expecting. And I like that Kale is torn between his loyalty to the king versus his interest in Selena. Yeah. And how he's coming to realize that she's not just this assassin he has to like watch to make sure she doesn't kill everybody all the time, and that she actually has this like tragic past that was caused by the king he serves. And so I like the not really forbidden romance, but it's just like they don't want to cross that line. Yeah. And it's kind of an interesting place to put them. But they have a lot of really cute moments together that I really like. And also, I said this in one of my shorts, but Sarah J. Maas has a thing for like dancing ship moments where the guy and the girl are dancing together, because her and Kale have this wonderful dance moment that reminded me of Feyre and Tamlin. Like, obviously I don't ship Feyre and Tamlin. Feyre is meant to be with Rhys, but I do love the dance scene between her and Tamlin in ACOTAR. That is a really good written scene. And I kind of got that vibe from that scene between her and Kale at the ball when he came out. He had posted her as a guard, and she was mad and was hearing the music, and she was dancing alone, and he joined her. And I thought that was so cute. And so I know that they're probably not going to end up together, but I really like what's going on in this book for this particular time period, and it works for the both of them at this moment. I like Dorian. He's finally, like, they had this meeting and he finally stood up to his dad a little bit. Yeah. So I don't like his character right now, but I like and want to see him kind of grow into his own and stand up to his dad and stuff. Yeah. So that's interesting. I also wanted to share some quotes because this scene, I was reading it right before we went live and it hit hard. Some of her lines, it was like Carissa Broadbent level of writing, and I was just like, oh, this is surprising. Okay, so she's thinking back to when she had, spoilers for Throne of Glass, not really, because it mentions that she killed a bunch of guards and stuff, so at the beginning of Throne of Glass, but it's when she's in the mines, she's thinking back to the mines when she escaped. Yeah, and she's gone on this massacre, killing, for those of you who don't know, she's going on this massacre, killing all the guards. I remember this. Okay, where was it at? Okay. But she had not forgotten the sound of pain, nor what she had seen them do to the others, to that young woman from Eloway who had begged to gods who did not save her. Yeah. That hit hard. She had begged to gods who did not save her. I was like, well, that's sad. Yeah. And then she said, okay. Where did it go? The 3 sentries at the entrance to the mines didn't know what was happening below. Here it is. The 3 sentries at the entrance to the mines didn't know what was happening below. Everyone was always screaming in Endeavor. Endovir. I keep saying that wrong, I'm sorry. Everyone was always screaming in Endovir. Everyone sounded the same when they died. And the 3 sentries screamed just like the others.
Yeah, there's other quotes.
Like, hello?
When she talks about her time in Endovir, like, there are there are times where she will describe, like, give explanations for certain things or certain actions that she does, that it's
Mhm.
literally like gut wrenching. Like,
It
it's just like
like it was
there's
such
more
a
quotes that you'll get about that time and
yeah,
about that moment where she starts massacring them and stuff, that it's like,
yeah.
oh wow, okay,
I thought it was just so good.
oh yeah,
But yeah, so far it's kind of like to me just like an average read that's a little bit better than Throne of Glass, and so it's just kind of like mid
well,
road. There's
yeah,
nothing outstanding or new that really stands out and like, oh,
well
that's
see,
amazing,
and
for me.
that's where it's like the people describe the like Throne of Glass to be the slowest, and then they say that Crown of Midnight, which is the one you're on, gets better, especially in the second half. But they said that the books after that really just kind of skyrocket in,
Yeah.
like,
Which with a big
magnitude, and
series, your
it's like,
first ones have to set things up, so that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so logically, I understand that. It just makes it hard to get through. Sorry, my leg went numb, and that tingling feeling
Oh,
when your
yeah,
leg's coming back alive. It hurt.
yeah.
All right, I was like, I'm trying to like have poker face here, but I can't. Um, so real quick thing I wanted to bring up before we get into our subjects. So for those of you who don't play video games, I love playing video games. Hannah and I both are gamers. And the game called Split Fiction just came out literally like 2 or 3 days ago. And it's a co-op player, so it's designed for you to play with somebody else. And it's about two authors who get sucked into their story worlds, and one is a sci-fi author and one is a fantasy author. And it causes these glitches, so sometimes you're in the fantasy author's worlds and stories, and sometimes you're in the sci-fi author's world and stories. And my sister and I have been playing it and loving the heck out of this, and it's like this really interesting take on like writing and creativity and
Hmm.
experiencing stories, and like the idea of saving creativity. I won't get into like why you're saving creativity or anything, but it's
Yeah.
so fascinating.
Hmm.
And like the difference between fantasy and sci-fi, and also the characters are written differently, so they
Hmm.
enjoy reading different things, or writing in this case different
Yeah.
things. So when like the sci-fi chick has to go through this fantasy thing, she hates it, and then to the fantasy chick, the sci-fi stuff is really violent because there's a lot of guns and explosions and all that stuff. I'm like, clearly they haven't read Game of Thrones or any other graphic
Yeah.
fantasy, but it's okay. We'll let it slide. So it's just this really interesting, fun game to play. So if you guys are actually like do enjoy video games and you're also book readers watching this podcast, you may be interested in Split Fiction, and I'm definitely going to be forcing you to play it with me at some point because it is fun.
Sounds like it.
So I just had to bring that up.
Yeah.
But I know we both had the Professor Severus Snape situation to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, a little bit of a controversy, but it's interesting. I know my husband and I were watching this video that went over all of the details about it and how supposedly they are trying they're choose the reason why they decided to choose the African American actor that they chose is that he's 31, like supposedly Snape is supposed to be in the books, and so they wanted to be age accurate. But a lot of people were suggesting like Kylo Ren because he has a facial expression that's kind of like just like a little bit more accurate. But the person
Adam
that I was
Driver.
watching did point out quotes.
Adam
Yeah,
Driver, that's his
Adam
name.
Driver. Thank you. I
Yep.
don't know why I couldn't think of his
Hey,
name.
it just came to me, and I'm like, we were talking
And
about not remembering his name earlier,
yes,
and I'm like, I remember it, so I have to say it before I forget again.
yes. And how she brought up some quotes directly from Harry Potter, which I know you're reading at the moment, or you're reading in the series at the moment.
Yeah.
And it was like it describes his skin as like milky white at some points, and like just a sallow complexion.
Sallow, yeah, that's the one I saw
Yeah,
too.
yeah. And so and then a lot of people were. My mind went blank for half a second, and so that's kind of like and a lot of people were talking about how I forgot the author name randomly escaped me, but how she has changed her own canon before to kind of add ideas to be a little bit more diverse after the fact.
Yeah.
Is some of the thing that people were talking about, and how I don't know if she's spoken out against this or if she's all for this actor choice.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just the whole concept
know.
of like changing, it's not the race necessarily, it's just changing the appearance of characters that are described differently.
I know that like J.K. Rowling she's in hot water anyway because of some things with the fan base, and so the fan base isn't really happy with her to begin with. So it's like, I don't know if her saying much will have much of a sway in the whole situation. And it's like, it does kind of, it bothers me. Like, it's not it doesn't bother me because I don't want representation. That's not what I'm saying. Like, I am all for having like a show that has proper representation for everybody, because that's not the world. Like, there's different types of people in the world, so it's like, why wouldn't you? You know what I'm saying? But if you are going to advertise and use your main selling point for fans to watch the show as it being more book accurate than the film franchise, which is something big that they have been using as a marketing, from a marketing standpoint. They've been like, at the beginning they said, well, it's great, we're redoing it to make it more that was their justification in making it a TV show and redoing it, because they were making it more book accurate. And it's like, okay, if we are making it book accurate, and that is that's your main goal of redoing this series, like, essentially scrapping a TV show, film, like an 8-film franchise that was massively successful. And like, fans had their issues, because I have heard people say, well, the further you get into the movies, the less like the books it gets. I've heard that. But it's like, overall, I feel like the Harry Potter fan base can agree that the movies they were happy with them. They loved them.
Because to me, when you think of book to movie adaptations, the first two that come into your mind is Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter.
Exactly.
Adaptations that are going to be the most accurate. So how do you top the closest one that's done as best as you're going to get?
That's where it's like, there's moments where I'm sure that the movies didn't get as close as they could possibly get, and they took more creative liberties as they went along. And I know sometimes fans are okay with that, and sometimes they aren't. Like, there are certain things that kind of at least have been insinuated that they were, like, the fans that have read, like, on Reddit before about when I've looked up different things, like if certain characters will get redemption arcs, and they'll mention how, like, in the movies they get certain scenes, but you don't in other, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's deleted scenes in the movies and the later books that hint at things for certain characters or whatever that J.K. Rowling never wrote into the books. So, like, I get that. Like, there are some creative liberties that they took with the films that fans genuinely liked. But if you are going to advertise that the main reason why you're making this TV show is to make a more accurate book representation of a more accurate film representation of the books, then you have to stick to what the book says. And the book describes him as a thin man with sallow skin, a large hooked nose, a greasy shoulder-length black hair, and cold black eyes. That's the main quote that a lot of people have been using. And if you look up the definition of sallow skin, what you get on Google is sallow skin refers to a yellowish or pale discoloration of the skin, often accompanied by a dull or lackluster appearance. So it's like a kind of like, it reminds me of like, you know, when somebody's been sitting in the hospital for a while and they've had like that iodine type stuff, and their skin just has like more of a yellowy, sickly sheen to it. Like, that's what I think of.
That's what it,
you know what I'm saying?
A sickly kind of complexion is kind of what it is.
And it's like, but the thing is, if they're worried about like black representation in the show, there are characters that are black that are written into the series. Mm-hmm. Focus on accurately representing them and make them more prevalent. Or there's more than just Hogwarts in the universe. There's more than just the Hogwarts is not the only magical school. Nope. There's like the one, I can't ever say it right. It starts with a D. I can't say it. There's the two that you see in the Goblet of Fire, and then there's the school. There's a school in America too, in Massachusetts, and I had to Google this because I wasn't sure. It's the Wizarding School in America is Livermore. I'm not saying it right. I'm gonna butcher these names, but it's a wizarding school in Massachusetts. which hasn't really, I don't know if it's really kind of been properly represented on the film screen at all. Um, it has been, let's see if any references, appearances. What appearances? Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them in the film. It shows it there. So it's like, if you really want, like, if you want to make a school that has more diverse representation, then leave Hogwarts the way it is and make a whole series with a whole new school from a whole new school that has more representation, and write it so that way it has more representation, if that's what you're wanting.
Well,
And don't put ulterior motives of saying, oh, we're making this TV show so that way it's more accurate to the books. Don't say that and then go back on that to make more decisions for ulterior motives. You know what I'm saying? Like, make your motives clear from step one, and set up a series, a TV show that will support that in a way that the fan base will also be willing to support it.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing too, that the video I was watching, and she's a Harry Potter fan as well.
Yeah.
It changes his story. I don't know. I'm not going to get into spoilers, so I don't know how far you've gotten in his.
No.
But
I don't know much about it. I don't know him at all. Yeah.
Well, without spoilers, essentially, him being African American, Black, essentially, him being Black changes his story and allows for it to be more about racism than it does about his character as who he is as a character. Yeah. And so a lot of people were saying, like, the thing is that, well, it'll allow them to squeeze in a racist storyline into his backstory, because the reason why his backstory happens is because he's Black now, not because of his character and the events that take place there. Yeah, and that was a big issue with there. But here's the thing too, the other chick agrees with me on this, that irritates me the most, is like when it's starting to happen more often, where it's like, oh, we get called out if we like whitewash things, where it's like a white character is like, there's too many white characters, or there's not enough white characters. But like, if it happens the other way, where it's a white character getting replaced with a Black one, like, it's not, nobody freaks out as much as it should be. But it's happened so many times. The Anne Boleyn TV show on Netflix, Anne Boleyn was a real historical person who lived in England, and she was white, like she was English, and she actually has ancestors that you could have used in the show, and she was played by a Black woman. They changed it to a Black woman, and it's a historical show about a real woman who was white.
There was a lot of controversy with There's a big controversy with the Cleopatra documentary type show that was the same issue, is that they were claiming that there's actual historians that were counter like rebuttaling the main arguments for why they casted the person the way they did.
Yeah, but another adaptation example though is The Mortal Instruments. When not the movie but the TV show, one character in there, his name is Luke, and he's like the stepfather kind of mentor character to the main girl, and he was a average white guy who owned a bookstore, so he was very kind of just average Joe, kind of like, and it fit with the kind of average white dude in New York City owns a bookstore, and he wasn't liked for being a werewolf and all that stuff. And in the show they made him a Black guy but also a cop. And the whole cop mentality was a bigger issue too, because it changed his whole character. But it changed, and I liked the character in the show separately from, it just didn't feel like the same character, even though the one in the show was still a decent character, if that makes any sense. And so it feels like it happens a lot, and it's not the race issue. It's literally just taking a character and changing that character from what it should be.
And honestly, this could even go back to like my main irritation with Hollywood at the moment, is that they take they're really big on taking book franchises and trying, like, at the moment they're big about taking cartoons and live actioning them. That's what they've been doing. But what they've started to do, because book talk has gotten so widespread, and any book that gets somewhat popular in book talk explodes, Hollywood has decided to start making film adaptations of all these TV shows. Now, none of them have actually come out yet, and at least one of them has already been canceled. But it's like, they're big on remakes or movie adaptations of film, like film adaptations of books. And it's like I want Hollywood to get away from that. And it's like, I know my
Yeah.
opinion doesn't
And
matter
if
at the
you
end of
think
the
about
day,
it,
but
if
it's
they
like,
really want something that is
literally, we
diverse,
wouldn't have this problem
Fourthwing.
if they would
Like,
just,
there are books that are diverse. You know
they,
what I'm saying? Like Fourth Wing and other ones that actually have diversity in there.
yes, yes. And
If that
like
really matters.
Rebecca Yaros has specifically said that Zayden is not white. Like, she's full on come out and confirms, like, these characters are not white. You know what I'm saying? And it's
Yeah.
like,
Connie's skin is like a brownish
if
kind of tan color.
well, and it's like, I just, I don't know. I want books left alone. Let books be books.
Yeah.
Hire writers that actually have one creative bone in their body, that can actually write a story that shows diversity, shows it properly and respectfully, and make that and go with it. And
here's the thing,
put your money into something like that. Quit trying to recreate stuff and recreating it into more diverse, like an exact copy, except throwing a bit of diversity in there and making fans mad and then blaming the fans for it and making the fans be like the bad guy. I'm sorry, the fans aren't the bad guys. They just want, fans respect the original format of whatever it is. So if it's a cartoon, they respect the original cartoon. If it's a book, they respect the original book. If it's a TV show, they respect the original format of the TV show and the characters that were represented in that original TV show. That's why Star Wars fans got so irritated at the sequel trilogy, because they completely uprooted the lore from the originals. That's the way fans work. And I don't know if Hollywood just doesn't understand that, but it's like, fans have a respect for the original, whatever that is, whether it's a book or a movie or a show.
And again, that was what we were taught when I was in college, but apparently nobody knows that anymore. But in this is just my personal opinion, and people are free to disagree with me. In my opinion, I don't like the whole idea of representation. Like, if you're writing a modern day story, then yes, you want it to reflect the world around us. But like, I don't watch things to see myself in them. So the idea of representation feels a little narcissistic in the first place, because I don't need to see myself in a character to relate to them. I can relate to an alien character, or, a character who I love Ahsoka. There are aspects of Ahsoka that I relate to, and she's a completely alien character that there is no representation there, because she's just an alien. All these other fantasy races and things like that. Like, I don't need representation in order to enjoy something, and it feels a little shallow if somebody cannot watch something if there's not somebody exactly like them in there. And it bugs me, because it's like, you not just enjoy a character or a show if they don't resemble you. Like, are you that narcissistic that you have to see yourself on the screen in order to enjoy something that you're watching? And that's just my personal opinion on the whole idea of representation. It's like, we watch things or read books especially to escape reality, and that's why fantasy and sci-fi are so popular, is because those are the ones that allow you to escape a lot more. Now, there are people who enjoy like modern day stories, and that allows them to escape too, but like, the idea of sci-fi and fantasy has grown and been so popular, with like franchises like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars that kind of started the whole both genres, is because it's like fantastical. It's not of this earth or this world, and it takes you away from this world kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's like, at the end of the day, if you're a reader and you want to see like shows that have more are more like ethnic racially like diverse, or like more heavily at like, I don't know, like different, a more mix of different races and stuff like that. If that's just what you want to see in general, maybe it's not so much because like you want to see yourself, but if that's what you want in general, then start making those series popular. Make them explode on TikTok. Boost them. So that way these Hollywood companies, will start making shows based on stuff that's popular, because they, at the end of the day, they're going to choose a series that is popular, that everyone's talking about. Now, and we've had this discussion before. There was a girl that people were claiming that she was racist because she said that she was a white woman, and she said that she didn't feel comfortable writing. She said she probably wouldn't ever include a black character into her series, which it was like more of I think it was more like a dark romance kind of series, because she's not black. She has no experience with that, and she didn't feel comfortable writing with that. And a lot of people backed her up. I mean, like, that's why are we creating drama with this girl? Like, it's like, and it's like, at the end of the day, if the author does not have personal experience as someone in that race, they're probably not going to be able to write comfortably a character. I'm assuming, like, I mean, they would have to either do a lot of research and be walking on ice, because if something is misinterpreted or taken wrong, there's going to be issues. And so it's like, if that's what you want to see, start blowing those series up. Like, make them popular. And when I say blow them up, I mean, like, make them popular. Like make them go viral on TikTok. Start talking about them. Start sharing them. You know what I'm saying? So that way more people read them, and the companies that make these movie adaptations or TV show adaptations will take that. You know what I'm saying?
The only thing I would slightly disagree with, not every author can, but it's possible, and it takes research, and it helps if you know somebody. It's like with me writing like the Japanese like stuff in Immortal, I had a friend who lived in Japan. She's not Japanese, she's from the UK, I think, or I think she's from Scotland specifically, but she married a Japanese man. She has a half Japanese son, and she lives in Japan, so she's able to like edit that culturally. Now for me, historical stuff is easier because it's in the past, and so you can research a lot about the past that for me modern day I just didn't know. But like Native Americans, like for specifically the Lakota, I have written both past and like modern day people who are Lakota that are living on like the reservations and stuff still today. So it's possible. I feel like it kind of depends on the author, and it depends on the audience that you're going for, because if you have an audience that is more catered to diverse things, then they may be a little bit more picky about how the culture or the characters are represented. But if you have a audience who really doesn't, then they're not going to be that picky, or that they may not mind what you write or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely just like you said, if you really want representation, then start making other things popular that are, or exactly what you would want to see or read or watch or whatever, But speaking of adaptations, though, I had a little bit of a shock. I was actually finding articles for our chat, and this popped up out of nowhere that I was not expecting. So the book that originally inspired Immortal was called Fallen by Lauren Kate, and I read it when I was in high school, maybe, I think, because it was after early high school, I would say. And I really enjoyed the series, but like I said, like the book and the whole series and stuff, but I had obviously wanted to write like something a little different, and that's how Immortal came to be. They made a movie about the first one a long time ago, and the movie flopped, and it sucked, and nobody really knows that the movie exists. But apparently there is a show that has now been adapted, and it was announced back in 2022, so this is kind of old news, but season 1 was released last year of Fallen by Lauren Kate, and it's now a TV series, and I didn't know that. Nobody, and I'm like, holy cow, this is what inspired Immortal, and it's now a TV series. I don't know how accurate it's going to be. I haven't read the book in years, so even if I watch the TV show, I may not know. But I was like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting.
That's cool.
So it was just kind of a nice little surprise. Yep. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. I didn't really have a whole lot to talk about this time. I know I saw this one girl that was talking about, apparently there's some people that there's, I don't know, there's just people that are finding things wrong with authors. And there's this video that I saw on TikTok of this girl that was kind of talking about the whole thing, and she essentially said that TikTok is becoming less about reading and more about finding things wrong with authors. And she's like, I'm sure if you look hard enough, you're gonna find something wrong with every single author that you read. Like, if you dive deep enough and you look hard enough, you're probably going to find something that they've said that's not the most accurate or the most respectful. You're going to find something wrong with them if you try really, really hard. And it's like she said that essentially she felt like book talk wasn't even about reading or sharing your thoughts on books anymore. It was just all about the drama. And it's like,
Right.
I totally get that. And that's where it's like
Mhm.
any of like the book interactions I get anymore, it's never on TikTok. Like I don't go to TikTok to find I
Yeah. I mean, it's like
book
Instagram and
stuff.
Threads, but
I mainly just go to
yeah.
Tome. Like Tome is where I get a lot of my interactions. Like, and I talked about like DNFing books, and I made a post on there, and I've got some really cool interactions with some people about like criteria, like that, like what you look for, that like what do you look for in DNFing a book, or like if you do DNF a book or whatever. And so like there's genuine conversations with people, and it's like I feel like book talk started as that, and then it's like it's gotten so toxic and so drama based that it's like just
Mhm.
not even worth it anymore. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah, I get
saying?
that. Yeah. Well, and the thing is too, like, there's something wrong with everybody. Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
nobody that lives that exists as perfect. So it's
No.
kind of really weird to say that anyway. Like, for people to be looking for that and then to also be like, well, yeah, I mean, everybody is human, everybody has flaws. So, of course, every author's going to have flaws because guess what? You as a reader do too. You know, not you, but like
Yeah, I get
readers
you.
in general do too. So, yeah, I would say the only critique about Tome is that it like alienates half of people because there's no app for the Android and it's just not very user friendly to Android people, so we can't
I know
actually use it, and so
they
it's kind of
have
like the rest of us we
they
can't really
have
use it
actually
easily.
they've talked I know they said that that the the software to create Android apps, I guess, is a lot harder to use than the Apple system. That I guess that's kind of what their explanation as to why they didn't have an Android one made yet. I'll have to look at their
Hmm.
Discord to see if they've made any updates after stream, because we're
Yeah,
currently on Discord. But like, I'll have to look and see if they've made
yeah,
any
that makes sense.
updates on that at all. But yeah, that can be frustrating.
Hmm. Right. So my next one was actually I have two different George R. Martin stuff. So he apparently there's another Game of Thrones spinoff. It's called A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, and
Mm-hmm.
he actually says it's going to be unlike any other Game of Thrones series. And he spoke with Collider to promote his other movie called In the Lost Lands, which is like a fantasy movie based on his short stories. And he said about A Knight of Seven Kingdoms, he says I've seen it's based on the Dunk and the Egg novellas, and he's like, I've seen those. And now they're working on the second season. Where did he okay. They're not what most people would expect in a fantasy story. He said that it will be a little softer than Game of Thrones and House of a Dragon, and it'll be a little bit more humorous. And he said, I hope the audience will be open to that kind of change.
Hmm.
Um, so apparently it'll be the third installment in the Game of Thrones franchise after the original series. We already know kind of all that. So, um it'll be a faithful adaptation as a reasonable man could hope for. So it's going to be as reasonable. So I don't know if oh, yeah, I guess so it's going to be as faithful at I can't talk. Oh my gosh. As faithful as adaptation as a reasonable man could hope for. The grammar, maybe that's what's throwing me off, is that's not written right, but it'll be as faithful as possible, essentially. Um,
Yeah.
Viewers are looking who are looking for action and action and action. Well, this one might not satisfy you. There's a huge fight scene, as exciting as anyone can ask for, but there are no dragons, no huge battles, no White Walkers. This is a character piece, and it focuses on duty and honor, on chivalry, and all the means. I hope you will love the show as much as I do, is what he says. So,
Hmm.
which I'm not like, I like the whole knight aspect. Like, I'm a fan of like knights and honor and chivalry and all that classic stuff. So, I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
But um okay, I wanted to see what this one was. So he said, um, okay, um, yeah. So it talks about this one talks about how Game of Thrones figuratively lost the plot, um, because it had outpaced his writing and used up all the source material somewhere around the fifth season. Um, So, in his recent interview with Collider, I guess it might be the same interview, he commented on his ongoing book series and gave an impromptu update on his progress. He said, "There's always the books," he commented, "and I'm aware that people think that, but no, I have to get back. I have to finish the books. That's the one thing I'm in complete control of. There's no budget limitations. There's no other executives on the studio side that I have to please or other writers with different views. The books are all what I'm going to make them, and think I'm the one I think the one I'm writing is coming along pretty well, but I wish it would come along faster." So, which as a fellow author, I can agree with that. Like, the one thing you can control is what you write, and that's kind of why, you
Yeah.
go from being a reader to a writer, is because I write what I want. So if I'm reading a book and there's something I don't like, I can just write my thing differently.
Yeah.
So it does seem like he's working a little bit harder in his and everything, and that he's in control of what happens.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to see how it's going to diverse from the ending of the TV show.
Yeah, for sure. But that's like the first time I've ever seen something like that. I've heard of something like that happening, where Hollywood just completely ignored the writer and just finished the series without the writer. Like, again, you see it kind of like with like Jurassic Park a little bit, because they've continued the movie series past the books, but there was never like any intention of adding more Jurassic Park books. They came out in like the first one came out in like 1997, and the movies came out like when.
True.
So it's like
That's very true.
there was no kind of like talk of adding more Jurassic Park books in the series. It was just the two of them. Jurassic Park and The Lost World.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was just the two
so
of them.
it was safe for them to kind of adapt it beyond that.
Yeah, because it was just the two of them, so they could go beyond that and make it whatever they want. But it's like, in this case, when he said there were going to be 2 more books after what he had written, and the studio just continued on without him, I'm like, if I was him, I would just not finish. I would boycott it and not finish it at all. So, like, in my head, in my eyes, he's being gracious to even writing anything at all. That would peeve me off something fierce, and if I was him, I wouldn't finish the series. I wouldn't. I would, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, but that's punishing the fans and not punishing the hot. So I get it, but it's like that would make me so mad.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, I don't see, and it's like, I just, so it's like, That's the one time where I'm like, decanonizing a TV show or like decanonizing something would be a good thing. So it's like, in Star Wars, 100%. In the sense of Star Wars, it was a bad thing. But it's like, in this one, it's not too bad.
Because then you can tell too, like, just watching it, like, it's obvious that they don't know anything, because some of the characters just lost their development. Like, Tyrion's supposed to be this mind strategist, and he had such clever strategies for some of the battles, and he got so dumb and stupid. It's like, well, why did you do that? And like how they ended Daenerys, and like the twist with Jon Snow, supposed to be the future king of he was a half-breed, well, a bastard essentially, and he was treated like that, and the twist was that he's actually the heir to the whole kingdom. And it was like, it doesn't sound like a twist now, but at the time it was like, oh my god. And then what you're gonna do when he finishes the whole TV show, we're gonna send him right back to where the bastards go, right back to the wall. There's like, are you, like, 8 seasons just to send him back where he started? And like Jaime, he had an incest relationship with his sister, spent 8 seasons trying to break away from that really toxic relationship. Very last season, very last part of the episode, he goes back to his sister and they die together. And I'm like, are you, like, every character arc and development just went right back to the beginning, because it's just, they didn't know what they were doing. I gotta stop. I'll rant about Game of Thrones for forever.
Yeah, no, okay. I get that.
So another article I had seen, so for me, the whole Amazon, like, boycotting Kindle and readers on Amazon, it's exploding, and it's everywhere, especially on Threads. And like, there's a lot of authors on there like, please don't do this. I've seen so many authors saying, like, talking about how their sales are dropping, they may have to stop publishing, like, this is going to ruin their careers, because most of us are on Amazon because Amazon has the monopoly in the book industry right now. So, and then for people who are on the KU, their books are only on Amazon. They don't let us put it anywhere else. Like, I'm wide, so I have my books on like Barnes and Noble and Kobo, and they're like, oh, I'll just buy from Barnes and Noble. Well, not every indie author is on Barnes and Noble because they're in the KU. They can't be. They're not allowed. And the boycott is still going on. People's sales are dropping, and I've heard a lot of people like begging people to stop. Like, you're just hurting indie authors. Amazon's too big of a company. You're not going to make a dent. You're only hurting indie authors. And so this article talks about how she switched from a Kindle reader to Kobo for a week, and how she's never going to go back. And I kind of I haven't read the article yet, but I wanted to see what her reasons were. So she talks about how it removes a feature that allows users to download their Kindle books to their PC, whether to back up those books or use a tool like Calibre to read them on a non-Kindle device. With this feature gone, the only way to read Kindle books is now on a Wi-Fi connected Kindle or the Kindle app, which, by the way, you can download them for free. Like, you can read them offline on your Kindle device. That's not changing. So I don't know why they're like, do Wi-Fi. So this announcement sparked frustration for a lot of readers, prompting many, myself, the article writer included, to take a closer look at the Kindle's rival Kobo. If you're also considering making a switch, you might be skeptical on whether it's worth it. So she switched to a Kobo e-reader for a week, and decided after the week is over that she's leaving Kindle for good. Amazon's change to its ebook downloading might not sound like a big deal. If you're buying ebooks on Amazon, you're probably planning to read them on a Kindle app anyway. But the move cements the reality that when you buy a Kindle ebook, you don't actually own it, because Amazon can change or remove that title from your library at any point, and you can't read it outside of Amazon's ecosystem. A lot of the removing, they don't remove your ebook from your Kindle. The author can do that if they take their book down to do edits, and then we can put them back up. But that's like the author or publisher discretion if we need to make changes to the book. Yeah. Okay. So what Kobo does better, it offers a range of Kobo e-readers. Okay, she talks about the different kinds of e-readers. She said the most inconvenient part was actually getting her Kobo. Thanks to Prime, you can order a Kindle and potentially have it that day. But the Kobo readers, e-readers, they're available on Amazon, but it seems counterintuitive to buy one there. So she ordered from Rakuten, and the shipping took about a week.
Isn't Kobo sold at Barnes and Noble? Like, isn't that theirs?
I don't know. I don't think so, because I had this, like, my books are separate on, like, my books are on Kobo, and then my books are on Barnes & Noble, and they have two different self-publishing sites, but I don't know for sure. Maybe they are.
I know Barnes & Noble had their own. Oh, no, I guess it's their own website. Rakuten Kobo.
One feature that she did like about the Kobo device is that it does actually have pages, and one page is one swipe of the screen. So if you're on page 8 out of 16, you're actually on 8 out of 16 swipes, okay. Whereas like the Kindle has that weird.
Yeah.
She's found titles on her wish list on sale for $5 or less. You can still download and export your Kobo ebooks to other devices. You don't need to pay to remove lock screen ads on your Kindle. There are no lock screen ads. And so she doesn't regret it. And that's the thing is, though, like, it will stop quite a bit of piracy on the Amazon side of things, because if you can download the files, there's nothing stopping you from emailing those files or uploading them to whatever site, pirating site. So it really doesn't. And I brought up the argument of, if you want to own something and not be scared of it being taken away, get a physical copy, not a digital one. And this is true for anything, like DVDs versus digital movies instead of book, But I get that people don't have money or room or space, honestly, or whatever.
That brings up the fact that in 2025, Barnes & Noble is actually adding 60 more stores in the U.S. Like, I feel like, honestly, the more we get away from, I feel like the COVID era is what made everyone shift to e-readers big time. Like, e-readers were a thing before that, but they weren't nearly as popular as it is now, because during COVID, people couldn't get out to go to the bookstores. And so a lot of those bookstores closed. True. And it was like, but now, like, Book Talk, Book Talk has probably made a little bit of an influence, because more people are going to buy, like, the special, I think it's more of, like, the special edition type stuff has made the books more popular, but it's like,
I think so.
even like issues like this, like if you want to actually say that you own this book, go to support a bookstore, or go to a bookstore if you can and buy one. Or yeah, I hate to say it, but yeah, Amazon. Buy books on Amazon, or you can go to Thrift Books that has used books, especially if you want to support like give used books a second life, if that's the thing that you like doing, which I do, because all of these I got on eBay because I liked these covers, but they don't print them anymore. So what I do, I went to eBay and bought secondhand copies of all of the ones. So I have the whole series in this kind of style cover now, because you know what I'm saying. So there's ways of like, if not owning a book bothers you, buy the book.
There are alternative routes. And the thing that I don't like Amazon, and I don't like the way they treat indie authors, but we don't really have a choice, because it's the biggest thing right now. So there's really nothing that we can do about it, and like it's just hurting indie authors, and like it's not making a dent. The guy who owns it's still gonna be rich. The company is not going away, and unless something else comes up that's like just as big or going to be as big, like even some of the like Barnes & Noble and Kobo, they're big, but they're not like Amazon big. It's still going to remain the most popular way to get books and anything else. Like, it's not just the book industry, because they sell everything, which is part of why they have kind of almost a monopoly on online shopping almost. Because, you know, it's like the Walmart of online shopping, you know, whereas eBay is kind of like the thrift, and Temu, I would say, is kind of becoming a more thrift shop kind of online shopping kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nook. So, that's Barnes & Noble is a Nook. That's what theirs is. Nook.
Yes, that's true. I forgot what.
Yeah, Nook e-readers. Yeah, that's Barnes & Noble version. If you want to boycott Amazon, go to something like a Nook. Try that out.
Yeah.
They have like actual tablets. I'm gonna get distracted shopping and e-readers. And I don't even read like e-readers. That helps me like read faster, but it's like I'm not always in the mood for like to read on e-readers.
Yeah, I get that. I haven't even touched mine since we started this podcast. I think I read maybe one. Did I read? I think I read one in the very beginning, and ever since then, I've been reading physical books, like, since we did it, so yay me, I guess. But the other two articles I had were not actually important when I scanned through them just now, so...
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think we're pretty much at an hour. We're at an hour and 2 minutes, so we kind of...
Nice.
Yeah.
So maybe by the next time we do a check-in, I will finish Crown of Midnight. I almost want to see who thinks, like, obviously there's only one person, but who thinks I can? It's like, oh my god, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, you'll get it.
Be a nice little reading challenge.
Yeah.
Is actually finish the book I'm reading. I'm pretty sure this is the longest time I've read a single book, like, since this year, because I've read other books.
Well, this year also just started too, to be fair, so.
Yeah. I'm just saying, it's like I've been reading so quickly, like, not really quickly, but for me quickly, because I didn't used to read at all.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'm spending more time reading this book than I've spent on the other ones this year so far. Fair. But it's a busy time, so.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys.
Let us know how your March reading TBR is going and what you're reading and stuff, and all your thoughts on this.
Yep. And if you have any kind of topics that you want us to discuss, or any kind of bookish or TV, film, book adaptation news, let us know. And we will take a look at it. All right.
Yep.